Hello, my name is Rachel King, and I am going to be discussing some facts and also analyzing the program that is used within our district at Colorado Springs. So the first fact that I wanted to mention was that before kids are able to read a whole word, they do need to be able to know letter sounds and how to blend, so focusing on those phonemes. The reason I brought this up is because this is a challenge at our school and at the schools within our district, because we know the importance of it. We do a lot of nonsense word fluency, which I think is important because it just focuses on those phonemes and really helping kids understand how sounds sound, separately and how they sound once blended together. And this helps them whenever they're reading real words and whole words. And our literacy district coach does not believe in teaching nonsense word fluency. And so it's kind of a struggle to teach these phonemes, especially in the first grade when we're kind of past just individual letter sounds, but not quite ready for whole words at the beginning. Nonsense word fluency is it's a huge help, and it's something I think is important. So that's why I brought that fact up. The next one is that vocabulary is an important part of reading, and most kids, they acquire their vocabulary just through normal conversations throughout the day, and they understand the meaning just through those conversations. However, it does talk about how it needs to be taught directly. Some aspects of vocabulary should be taught directly so that students understand them. And I brought that fact up because our reading program does not have a vocabulary component. So as I was reading all these facts, I was trying to kind of compare what our text was saying versus what I've been teaching. The next fact is that there are 3 phases to the reading process. The pictorial phase, the phonological phase, and then the orthographic stage. And all of these stages have to be mastered before moving on to the next one. I thought this was interesting because I think so many times we often rush these stages, trying to get to the next one, even if students haven't mastered the previous one, and this results in some complications, I think. And then the last one that really just was an eye-opener is how many causes there are affecting students' ability to read. Poor instruction, cultural problems, physical causes, linguistic causes. All these things are fighting against you whenever you are trying to teach a kid how to read, and I thought it was interesting. So our program that we use is Journeys, and it is published by Houghton Mifflin, and it was published in 2011. So it is a little bit of an older series. This coming up year is the last year we will be teaching it, and then we get a new upgraded one, so I'm very excited about that. And last year was also my very first year as a teacher, so I've only taught this program once, so I am familiar with it because I taught it. However, I'm not as familiar as obviously someone who's been teaching it since 2011. So we mainly use this program in our whole group reading. This is really where the bulk of it happens. And it's a weekly, lesson. So we have a story every week. We have a phonics skill every week. We have a spelling, and the phonics. The phonics is built into the spelling, so those go hand in hand. Also, the phonics, you'll see words with those, the phonemes that we're practicing in the story. So it's all connected very nicely. And we do pull it into small group reading a little bit with just leveled readers. That's really the only thing we pull into our small group reading, also with the phonics as well, though. And after reading how the brain learns, our text, it says that comprehension, fluency, phonemic awareness, and phonological awareness are all skills that students need to have in order to be able to read. And I do believe that our program currently teaches those skills very well. So like I said, that I did teach this, so I am familiar with it. I don't use it necessarily exactly how it's laid out, and the reason for that is because I felt that as a first-year teacher and as my first year trying to kind of understand this curriculum, I did go a little bit slower than experienced teachers just because I wanted to make sure I was doing it correctly and I was hitting on all the components. But what I found was that I was doing a very nice job of teaching all the skills, but we never got to the story. And that's obviously the most important part to reading is having time to read. I know that you were supposed to only focus on skills for about 20%, and you are in the text 80%. And for me, it was flip-flopped. And so I did kind of adapt a little bit, and I changed the way it wanted me to do it just so that it fit for my classroom and the needs of my students. And I felt like by the end, my students were doing fairly well with how I adapted it, even though they were used to the other way. And then, like I said, I think our program has a lot of the skills necessary for students to learn, and it teaches them very effectively, I think. The one thing that I did not like about our program is that the stories were not engaging, and they are also very random. And by random, I mean that one week we would be focused on a fictional story, the next week it would be a poem, and then we'd have 4 fictional stories in a row, and then a random nonfiction story would be thrown into the loop. And it made it really, really difficult, especially whenever you're trying to teach the difference between story elements and text features, and also just helping students understand the difference between fiction and nonfiction as your main genres. It was very, very difficult. And no matter how engaging I was, no matter how many activities I built into the lesson, or how excited I was about the stories, my students really did not like the stories. And I understand why. They were very off. They were just kind of weird stories. And so that is one thing I did not like about our program. I'm interested to see what the stories are like as I go into 4th grade this coming up year, just to see if they're any better. And so I'm excited for that. I'm excited to see how I can improve my instruction now that I know all these facts about reading and how students learn how to read. So yeah, I'm very excited for 4th grade and using this program for our final year. Thank you for listening.